Hello, welcome to the Vegan Stew. I'm Kimberly. Thank you to Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce, the sponsor for this week's talks. We have prize packs that have been graciously donated by Hodo Foods, Follow Your Heart, Cinnaholic, Revolution Gelato, Terraseed, Fabulous, Rebel Cheese, Veggie, and Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce. So, how can you get in on winning these prizes? Head on over to virtualvegfest.com and enter your email and upload a photo of you interacting with one of these products, whether you have one of their products at home or you're at the store and you see one. Get creative. The more creative you are, the better chance you have to win. We are so excited to look at your photos, so make sure that you do that. We can't wait to send you some cool stuff. So, tonight, what are we up to tonight? Tonight we are, let me bring in everybody first. So we've got Marla Rose from Vegan Street. Hey,
Hi,
Marla.
everyone. Hello.
And Ellen Jaffe Jones. Hope
Jaffe.
I got that right. Okay. Ellen is the veg coach. Welcome. Thank you both for being here. It's a small stew crew tonight, but that's okay. We've got plenty to say. Don't you worry about that. Tonight we're talking about the keto diet, and we'll see what else comes up. Maybe some paleo. Maybe we'll talk about intermittent fasting. But before we get to that, Marla, what's in the news?
I'm glad you asked, Kimberly. I have a couple of news stories for you. By the way, Ellen's eating because there's no rest for the weary. We gotta do what we gotta do, right? So yeah, exactly. If I could cut out sleep, that would be impressive. I would be an impressive person. But anyway, I have two news stories, both pretty positive. The first one is that an organization called the Boston Consulting Group found through research that each dollar invested in scaling up non-animal origin meat and dairy, so like meat and dairy alternatives, plant-based, create the best investment in our environment or for our environment. 7 times more greenhouse gas reductions compared to green buildings, and 11 times more than zero emission cars. Animal agribusiness itself is responsible for at least 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. So it's good to see this intersection of the financial sector and the environmental sector kind of discussing this, the importance that the bang for buck in investing in non-animal foods for the future of our planet. So that was really great to see. And then the second item is that California Governor Gavin Newsom just approved in his $305 billion state budget for California. It includes $100 million in procuring plant-based foods for their public school system. So that means like investing in buying from different, makers, like whether it's Beyond Meat or Impossible, investing in more plant-based foods for their students. So like, again, we're seeing people really putting the money where the mouths are in terms of like caring about this planet a little bit more and seeing where the real bang for the buck is, which is plant-based agriculture. So anyway, I just thought those were two interesting stories, and until I was saying them, I didn't realize how they kind of intersected a little. So what are you guys thinking?
Well, I think I've seen some stats that show that, did you say 15% or 50%?
15.
I think it's more.
I've seen more too, but we go with very conservative, not conservative like Fox News, but conservative sources. Some like there is one that is 5.1 that has been debunked. So anyway, they're saying at least 1.5. So I don't know. Yeah, like I said, we go with you know, we don't go with like, live kindly stats on like we're gonna go with fact check media and that sort of thing. So anyway, and that was in I think originally reported in The Guardian. So I kind of trust that source. So.
Okay.
Any
It's
other thoughts about these things?
Mm-hmm.
I am just hoping that maybe Amy's will be a sponsor since, I am always seen eating on the run.
And they have the Amy's drive-throughs now in California. I hope that goes everywhere, right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Are
Yeah,
those actually built now? I remember the story when they were coming. They announced they were going to do that, but they're actually in existence.
It's happening. I don't know if it's I'm sorry, my cat's jumping on here now. I don't know if they're just like microwaving stuff that you would buy it. I would assume they're making, a little more of an effort than that. But I don't think that those locations are vegan. They're vegetarian, but they're very vegan friendly. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so those are but speaking of food and speaking of nutrition, we've got a new Stew crew member, our illustrious Jaffe Jones, who I, call her Wonder Woman, but I don't mean to insult Jaffe Jones when I say that, because she really is Wonder Woman. She does it all. She can do it all. That wall of medals behind her is not fake. Those are like, Ellen takes a breath and she wins 5 gold medals. So anyway, that's just kind of like, she is our she's our fitness pro, and this is her first week on the Vegan Stew. And Ellen is also an author of many books, including Paleo Vegan. And she's going to talk a little bit about some of these dietary things that people do, including paleo. So, Ellen, take us away. Where can you buy those books, by the way?
In case people haven't ever heard of me. Yeah. So let's see. We're almost down to the last one here. Yeah. Somebody doesn't eat the way you do, which I highly recommend living with somebody who eats the way you do. But we all started somewhere. And of course, the dog thinks I'm calling her. So, you may have an opinion here. Anyway, this whole thing started because, I've been a runner for 41 years, almost as long as I've been vegan. And somebody at a race came up to me as I was wearing my first shirt, which had my first book on it. And they said, "Oh, you can't eat on $4 a day, and you certainly can't run on a vegan diet." And it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for a number of years, and yeah, you can. So it became kind of this passion and mission. And I've had some and I've chatted with this hate on Facebook about some, especially people in the local running community. Most of them are supportive and nice to me to my face, but there are a few that just got real cranky as the whole vegan thing and me started posting. And part of that grew out of the whole paleo craze. When I was an assistant coach at our local high school, the whole paleo thing was igniting that. And I'm going, okay, so I forced myself to read the meat-based paleo books. And I'm going this is Atkins all over again. This is South Beach. This is the Stillman diet that I did, in high school. And, Marla and I were chatting in Messenger before the show. And, these diets, they work in the short term to make you lose weight, but then you rebound, refold, and at the expense of your kidneys and your heart, because high protein diets, which they all are. Keto is more focus on eating more fat than protein, but in the process, you're going to eat meat, animal-based protein. And, I did all these diets because I was a student of life and the media and and Atkins came back in favor. I thought, wow, there must be something I don't know because they're getting all this great press. But what I would later learn, as most of us did, it wasn't the science that changed, it was the marketing that had changed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because these diets can work in a flash in the pan and nobody's really studying except, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, I think has done a good job of keeping track of the illnesses that people have once they do these diets. There's no real money in broccoli, so no motivation to study the mayhem. So I wrote Paleo Vegan not to be yet another high protein, high fat book, but because so many vegans were telling me, oh, I'm going paleo and it's so much better, yada, yada, yada. And it just really annoyed me. And as I started digging into this and read the meat-based paleo books, they all had the concept of the cheat. Why? Because people can't sustain a high protein diet for a really long period of time without, getting constipated and just all kinds of
kidney stones.
I'm sorry?
Kidney stones and all kinds of things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted a vegan alternative. And as I started looking into it and really doing the research, it wasn't like a wild boar was ever running through our backyard in true Paleolithic time. We could do it successfully without getting sick and dying. And there's only 2 hunter-gatherer tribes still left in existence, and their success rate in catching a wild animal is only once or twice a month. And they have much more refined tools and spears to catch these animals versus in true Paleolithic times. And I think the most rewarding thing was, and Marla, I'll let you, go on because it sounds like you have a really good deep history in this as well. National Geographic came out with a cover story about a year after the book came out, and they said we were way more gatherers than hunters in true Paleolithic times. And, while the men were out elusively trying to catch this animal, the women were back home tending the nest with the babies and foraging for berries and nuts. And that's really what they were eating. So my whole thing, there was this really angry review on Amazon for the book saying, how dare you put these 2 words in the same sentence, let alone a book, paleo vegan. And yet, I am all about, we need to reclaim the title paleo. It really is for vegans, and was for vegans. And, what gives the meat eaters the right to claim all this? And in the sections of the meat-based paleo books, it's all about, what do you do for 20% of the time that you're cheating? If I was like this, and they kind of giggle if they were doing paleo and go, oh, I drink alcohol and eat ice cream. So for vegans, I'm thinking that complex carbs, beans and grains, if you want to cheat 20% of the time, you can. Again, this was just to be a vegan alternative. It is not in the way I eat. I eat according to what's in Eat Vegan on $4 a day. That's my life. The way gas prices are going up, it's really my life. I don't know about you. All right, enough about paleo vegan.
I was just going to mention, it's so interesting to me because when I think it was around the time when I went vegan, there was a big, just like it seemed like for a while there, Atkins just was, up and down in terms of popularity. And that was like in the late 90s. So I went vegan in 1995. But so I started hearing about the Atkins diet in like 2000 or something like that and, ignored it. But the fact is that these low carb diets have been around for centuries now. There's one, historically, it seems like the first person who experimented on it was just a very small sample, but in the late 18th century, his name, he was a physician named John Rollo, and he found that a couple of members of his army, not his army, but his country's army, had good results in limiting carbs with reducing or helping their diabetes. I didn't even know diabetes existed in the 18th century. But anyway, from there in the 19th century, there's a man named William Banting who wrote a very popular book. I think it's called A Letter on Corpulence, or something like that. And this was 1863, something like that. Yeah. And anyway, he had lost a bunch of pounds by doing this restricted, low carb. I don't know if it was necessarily high protein, but it was low carb diet. And then it kind of took off and went into all these, the booklet went, it went gangbusters among the Victorian crowd, and just got reprinted a bunch of times. And his name, Banting, became synonymous. It became a verb for dieting. I'm banting now. I'm banting. So, and then in the 19th century, the 20th century, as Ellen knows, it popped up in all these different iterations. There was the South Beach diet, which, I mean, they're all a little bit different, but they kind of are emphasizing the same thing: low carb, high protein. There was a book in 1960s called The Drinking Man's Diet. So it's just like, how to lose weight with your cocktails. And then in 1972, of course, we had Dr. Atkins, and sold many, many, many books. And so basically, this is not right. Everyone seems to think this is the new craze, keto, this, and like, I know that they're all a little bit different, but like, as Ellen was saying, I think it's basically window dressing. It's like, it's marketing shtick, so is there anything to be said for restricting carbs, Ellen, or what kinds of carbs to restrict, or what's your thought on that?
I know this may be not related, but did you see those NASA pictures of the stars and the galaxies?
I heard about it. I didn't see it yet.
It's like, you get a sense of your own finiteness, and when you think like you know it all, it's like you know nothing. You're just a peanut. But I mention it just because I'm always humbled by how much I don't know, and it brought back memories of how I actually thought of being an astronomer when I was younger and a doctor, and women were told, math is kind of hard. And so a lot of us kind of went down these other paths for careers, not to put those down in any way, because, it's been a fun ride. But I guess, when I talk to people, I say, what did Mother Nature really intend? What did our ancestors really do?
Right.
And it was about the food that was available. Richard Wrangham, who I mentioned in Paleo Vegan, and I actually coincidentally got to hear him speak at a Dr. McDougall Advanced Study Weekend, wrote a book called Catching Fire. And he said it was the cooking of food that made our brains grow large. It was not the eating of meat, as the paleo would have you believe, that made us grow bigger and our brains grow bigger. But it was the release of calories through cooking that actually fired up our.
You can eat a lot more, right? You can, which expands, organs, including the brain. But right, like, just eating berries all day, it's probably very nutritious and stuff like that. But when you cook, you can consume a lot more, right?
So healthy carbs, to answer your question, what do we mean by that? Complex carbs, grains that have the outer fiber, the outer bran, which is an additional 2 grams of fiber. We don't have a protein deficiency problem pretty much anywhere in the world. Dr. Greger, I saw, has a video out on just that very topic. We need to get over the whole protein thing, that we need to have so much of this. Actually, nutritionists got it wrong a number of years ago, and he goes into depth about how that is just, we've sort of been fed this line about we need protein, and at almost 70, I got enough protein to place in 254 5K races. I'm just saying. So enough protein, it's just deficiency. My favorite meme, maybe it's yours, Marla, I get them all confused. I usually think that if there's a good meme out there, vegans And my favorite one on this is, have you seen the deficiency wing of the hospital? And it's all
right. It's just
what
not
we have. And I know you've got the meme on fiber where it's like 100 beds and there's 3 people there who have enough fiber. 97% of Americans like are sitting on the pot. And, you know, having almost died of a colon blockage myself at the age of 28, that was from not enough fiber.
That's very serious. I mean, like if you go to say Walgreens or some other like, you know, Osco or whatever, that there are so many shelves just dedicated to helping people try to poop, you know?
And you have another fabulous meme on that. I did a slideshow and gave you credit for it. You know, all the different products that are out there. You're right. It's just massive. So,
well, and it's so interesting. Have you guys experienced this before where you hear from someone who's a new vegan or, you know, moving in that direction and they say, my gut feels really weird. Like I'm going to the bathroom all the time. Like your gut is getting regular. You're like not supposed to poop just once a week. Okay. Is, you know, like it's just, it's, think of what a better world we would live in if people pooped regularly. Think of how calm and
it really does make you cranky, right? When you're all stopped up.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even realize that it is that. You know what I mean? Like you don't even know well, I went a couple days ago, or whatever it is, you know. So it is really important, and so. Ellen, if there was a vegan who was kind of, you know, saying that, like, I actually do feel better when I prioritize protein and eat more protein than I do carbs. What are some of the suggestions you have for doing that as a vegan, for getting more in the direction of a high protein vegan diet without like overeating things like, you know, peanut butter or Gardein or whatever? How do you suggest doing that?
So I taught cooking classes for Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine's the Cancer Project, which then turned into Food for Life. And I was also looking for a section of my book about called Taming the Wild Bean. It takes anywhere from, everybody's different, 2 to 6 weeks for your gut, the microbiome, to recalculate and adjust. And so ways you can get around that are cooking with kombu, which is a kind of seaweed, which helps grow some good enzymes into the beans to help you digest things better. Also, just cooking the beans a longer period of time.
Right.
Final thing is starting with smaller beans and working your way up bigger beans, like, you know, the lentils. And some people just stay fine on lentils, and it's whatever works.
Right.
But if you don't want to do too many nuts and seeds because they're high in fat and therefore way more calorie dense. So, you know, just incorporating those a little bit into your diet to the point of manageability. Interestingly, I have some genetic heart issues and had to go through the Dean Ornish program for reversing heart disease for one reason only, not for nutrition, not for exercise, or psychological grouping, but to learn how to meditate. I would sooner watch paint dry than sit in a room and be still. So great program, and now quite mainstream in a lot of hospitals around the country. So it's very cool to see that transition. But you know, it just we have to make these adaptations. And I said, can I eat nuts? And, you know, getting back to your point, they said walnut a day. Really, just one walnut? So, you know, sometimes but, you know, the doctors, by the way, because of my high cardiac calcium score, they say your heart's done its own bypass, and that's why I can continue to run and not be on statins and just deal with it in different ways than my family of origin, unfortunately, deal with it. So other ways, and here's the other thing. Dr. Greger also has some great visuals and videos on, there's protein in everything. There's a gram of protein in a banana. All vegetables have a little bit of protein in them. So you have to listen to your body. And that is really I keep saying that a lot in my life, but it's just so true. Are you feeling tired?
Right.
Uh, so what is that saying? And you have to really examine, are you getting enough sleep? Because sleep, just as we are learning, is so tied to stress and disease now. So maybe that's it. It's not that you're not getting enough protein, because vegans, we kind of want to go to that. We've heard that myth so many times. We're thinking, well, maybe it is true. Most likely not. Although check with your doctor. And yeah, yes, ma'am.
I want to suggest that everyone get their vitamin D checked, your vitamin D levels checked, because almost everyone, like Ellen, you might be different being outside in Florida running a lot, but almost everyone is deficient, especially in the northern hemisphere, right? But if you're deficient, as I was and didn't realize it, and your doctor probably won't suggest it to you, because I don't know, they don't think of it. You may have a lot of malaise and just not have any specific kinds of ways to describe it. You get brain fog, your muscles are sore, your body's sore, you just have fatigue. Low D can also be connected with headaches and breaking of bones and things like that. So anyway, so if you're suspecting that maybe you don't consume enough protein, you might also want to get your D levels checked. It's very, very easy to get that back up. Even in this climate, that you take the D, I think it's D3, that's the vegan one, sublingual. I think they look for anything over 35, anything under 30, 35 is considered deficient. I was like 13 or 12 or something like that. I've talked to people who are like 7 or 8. So now my D is well in, after a few months of taking it and now taking it every day, is now well in the healthy range. But I had to take some prescribed D at a very high level. So anyway, that's just my point. Is just like, if you have like this feeling of malaise, get your D checked.
Yeah, I had the same issue. I was like falling asleep in the middle of the day, and I had intense joint pain, so intense in my knees, in my fingers, in my elbows, and my primary doctor was like, "Oh, you probably have an autoimmune disease." My gynecologist said, "Let's check your vitamin D level." And I was deficient, and she put me on the prescription of like 50 bazillion, whatever.
Yeah, that's what I got, the 50 bazillion.
and the joint pain started going away almost immediately. And now like things feel normal and I'm way less tired. Yeah.
It's just that it affects everything. And it's surprising to me that doctors don't automatically go that, like, getting your blood work up done anyway is a good thing to do, right? Like, and I hadn't gotten mine done for a long time with COVID and everything like that. So I didn't have any kind of baseline. And so getting that done was very helpful. And I am always telling people now about D, because it can affect everything from mood to, just feeling like an old person before you're ready to, I mean,
what does it mean to feel like an old person?
Stereotype of old before your time.
So, true story. I've come up deficient in D a couple of times right here in Florida, right here with this wonderful tan and being outside as I am running. So how does that happen? So, and this is important to understand. If you have a darker complexion, you may not be picking up the rays from the sun, which stimulates the production of D in your body. And after a lot of sun damage, since, Dad took us to Florida when I was 4 and said, "Oh, be out in the sun for 8 hours a day." And I am now paying the price of that. But it sure felt good. And so it becomes harder for D to
mean, it's true. You have to protect your skin. So it's like it's a double-edged sword. It's like, do you want to have a decent level of vitamin D, or do you want to get skin cancer? So you can just take a supplement. Take a supplement.
You are trying to absorb it. You got to expose parts of your body where the sun don't shine. So that's one way to kind of get around it. And, you can use your imagination how you're going to do that in Chicago. But, and the other thing is, just with the testing now, and because I am surprised over 50, they do D testing, they do B, complex testing, and the kinds of things that might be on the radar as you age. Because I remember when I first moved to Florida, I saw these signs along, some major roads saying, B12 shots here, and I'm going like, I know these signs are not designed for vegans.
Yeah.
People over 50, we have a harder time absorbing B, wherever we get it from. So that's another thing that's been tested. But what was interesting on the vitamin D testing, they can tell now whether the D has come from the sun or if it's come from a supplement. Because when I had my deficiency, then I upped my dosage, and they were able to track both of that. Because trust me, I was getting out in the sun, my calves in the sun. So, that these are just things just to be aware of, but never have come up short in B12. So, it's just something
I've been fine on that too. Yeah, I've been fine on that myself. But yeah, so what are some of the other dietary trends that have been on your radar, whether you're talking about keto or intermittent fasting or whatever? What are things that you hear people ask about a lot?
Well, the intermittent fasting, it's whatever works for you. Check with your doctor first. We always got to say before you change things up. But, people who do intermittent fasting and love it just are just on a soapbox, it seems. On the other hand, if you have a tendency for low blood sugar or diabetes in your family, maybe it was.
Or can I say also eating disorders, disordered eating, can really just dig in there. So, yeah.
Right. So it can be really challenging for some people. That said, intermittent fasting can mean different, times, different routines. It's one of those loosely interpreted terms out there that, works for different people. As an athlete, I just can't imagine it. I know there are some athletes who do it, but and I don't know if it's a division between the boys and the girls that we just, I am so sorry. Princess, go see Daddy. Daddy, call your daughter.
Is this your stepdaughter? No, it's okay.
Okay, she's out of here. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I do a thing where I don't eat after dinner. This is a kind of something I've done for the last couple of years, and I, delay breakfast a little till like 9:30 or so. So I don't necessarily consider that like harsh, like like tonight, for example, I'm going to eat later than usual. But I do find that it's a sustainable thing for me to be able to do, and it cuts down on snacking, it cuts down on kind of mindless eating, and whatever you call it, maybe that's helpful for some people,
Yeah, absolutely. And, the time ranges that you mentioned are quite reasonable. I usually exercise in the morning, so I find I don't eat something before I go out the door, even if it's just a banana. And that's all I ever used to eat when I was younger and would run 3 or 4 miles. About halfway through, I start feeling my stomach rumbling, and I have this sensation of hunger. And many of us have lost touch, to your point, of what it's like to feel actual hunger.
Yes.
And when you're mindlessly eating, especially as we stay at home.
Yeah.
I've talked to the director of fitness at LA Fitness here in Southwest Florida, and she said, I'm so saddened by the transformations I've seen with people during COVID. And between the emotional part of it and feeling isolated and not getting out, and then of course the weight gain. So there are just all these perfect storms right now that people are struggling with. And whatever way you can deal with it and it works for you, kudos. And who am I to say should or shouldn't do one way or another?
If it's working for you, then do it. But yeah, like I started working from home. I've been doing it for a long time, so like 1998. But yeah, definitely having the refrigerator like 20 feet away is a continual, temptation, right? So that you, if you're in an office, just don't think about,
Right, exactly right. Have you done Zoom? I mean, not Zoom. I watched a webinar on Zoom today. What I'm talking about. The psychological one that they deal with.
Oh, Noom. Yes. I did Noom. I still am technically signed up for it. So it is I don't know if they call it a weight loss program. I don't know how they frame it, but it is really about like mindfulness, eating with just, it really uses psychological practices to try to help you, not mindlessly eat and get in better touch with your hunger and be more. It's just like there's not a lot of diet culture with it. It's not shaming or anything like that. But I lost almost 40 pounds doing it, and I have not gained it back. So and it ended like just over a year ago, and I just signed up again just as a refresher a few months ago. But I find it to be very sustainable, and it really, at its best, what it does is it makes you be more accountable for, if you're mindlessly eating or over consuming or under consuming or whatever it is. It just like causes you to just kind of be more gently aware of it. And I just appreciate the tone of it. I appreciate it's not like encouraging disordered eating. And actually what they do, and this is one of the things that I really appreciate about it, is there are just like no off plan foods. And it's very easy to do as a vegan, because like plant food specifically, you can eat so much of. And when you start adding stuff to it that's more calorically dense, then it's just it has you can eat less of that. So if you're a high volume eater such as me, it just kind of encourages you to eat more plant, like just more simple plant foods. Right. But one of the things that I appreciate the most about it is, like, for example, I just kind of feel, I don't know if you guys notice this yourselves, I feel like we have lost touch of with the fact that, a piece of chocolate cake can be part of a balanced diet once in a while. You can eat a giant salad at lunch and once in a while have a piece of cake. You can have some guacamole here and there. Like this, the idea that like, a handful of walnuts is that big of a deal, or that like, or if you have a Gardein burger once in a while, that means that you're compulsively, like, just, like the character in Popeye, with the hamburger. Like, I think it's like the era of social media. We see a picture and we think we become like, that's what's always going on. And also that's my business somehow. And it's not. But don't you guys feel like we could all use just a little bit more understanding that it's a spectrum, and having a piece of chocolate cake once in a while is not the end of the the world. It's not a recipe for disaster, you know?
And again, Marla, I don't know if this was your meme or somebody else's. There's two women. They're sitting on a train, and the caption is going to a new city for the day, just sitting on a train. And then a vegan sitting on a train, planning 6 different restaurants to go to. That is so what we do.
We're obsessed with food.
St. Petersburg, and I swear we went to 6 different restaurants. And that. And, oh, it's a new vegan restaurant that opened. We're just so excited.
And the stereotype is that we hate food. The stereotype is that we don't like to eat, right? If you guys only knew. It's so true. Hey, Kimberly, what are your thoughts about the idea of balance?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's so much more about consistency and what we do day to day than it is about those one-offs. And there is so much shaming. People see like a fat person and they just assume that they're just, like you said, like, give me all the food all day long. And, that's not true for all of us.
It's not true.
There's so much still like judgment and around the way that we look. Mm-hmm. But really, to answer your question, is it's all about that consistency. If we eat healthy food, it's good for our bodies. It's what our bodies are,
feel good
fueled by. Then when we have those meals or those days where we are going to the 6 different vegan restaurants because it's a new city we haven't been to, and we need to eat all of the things.
Yes.
That is not like, it doesn't derail us, right? And this whole idea of like a cheat thing, I know, like you were saying, Ellen, it's such a big deal in these like paleo groups and like CrossFit people, like, oh, it's my cheat day, so I'm going to eat all of the worst things all day long. But then how do you get up the next day and do your CrossFit stuff? How do you get back into that paleo or keto diet? Because like the idea that any food is bad,
toxic,
like we have a view as vegans, right, that there are things that people view as food that we do not view as food, right, because they're bodies of sentient beings,
right?
But outside of that, like labeling food good, bad, cheat day, my on day, my off day, whatever, just feels so dangerous and unnecessary. And it is the reason why I think so many of us have disordered eating. I grew up being shamed a lot when I would eat certain foods or however often I ate or whatever it was. And, to this day, I'm still unpacking all of that stuff. And it's just, I don't know, like we need to embrace food.
Right. And
what it is.
Mind our own business, right?
Well, that too, for sure, right?
That's what you're saying.
Could we please?
Why would I care if someone else is eating Gardein? Why would I care if somebody else is eating vegan food? Like, it's just like, no. If I'm someone's dietitian and they're hiring me to look at their diet and give analysis or, recommendations, that's something different in a professional setting. But the idea that we can draw not only conclusions about someone's health with our eyeballs, but but also about their moral character, and the fact is that pretty much everyone I know who is in a larger body has tremendous self-discipline. It is not about that. Like, like the people who don't have self-discipline are the naturally thin people who eat whatever they want, whenever they want. Like, they don't know what. So, but I'm not condemning them. That's their genetics, and possibly some other things. But the point is, we have so much tied up with food and diet and body shame and, weight stigma. It would be wonderful if we could just give each other a break and give ourselves a break and just learn to, eat to enjoy our body, how we feel, what fuels us. And that was one of the things that I like the most about Noom is it helps you to examine thought distortions around food, and that's helpful.
Carla, could you just share a little bit, like what's a typical day like with
Right.
you have to keep a diary, like when you get hungry,
Right.
or when you
It's
eat?
all, yeah. Well, so it's all up to you how much you want to give to it. So there's daily reading. It's an app, so it's on your phone. It's a daily reading, of like say 5, 6, 7 minutes. It's really not a huge time commitment. Ideally, and I haven't been doing this lately, ideally you log your food so you get a sense of how many calories you're consuming. What they recommend for I think they say women, I don't, but like is about 1,200 calories a day, 12 to 1,400 calories a day, if you're trying to lose weight. I don't remember all the different things that are in there, but anyways, so from there it calculates approximately the calories of what you're entering, and then so you can know. Like one of the things that happened with me is I had no idea how many calories I was consuming, and I didn't realize it was going so much beyond like 1,400 calories, and so once I started that accountability, it really helped, and I wasn't hungry because I was figuring out, like I said, high volume eater. I like to eat. I was figuring out these workarounds that were not sneaky, but just consuming more high fiber foods, like instead of rice, eating a stir fry on a ton of, what you call it, even more um, cauliflower rice, for example. I could eat more. I could consume more and be less hungry. It's all about more. I'm a hungry caterpillar. So, and so you just figure out these different ways to consume more fruits and vegetables and whole grains, And so that's the main thing, is just like daily reading to sort of examine what some of your thought distortions and that sort of thing are. And, accountability with the calories you're consuming,
So
That's
just
the main.
awareness, basically.
Yeah, it's just kind of an awareness, and honesty, self-honesty. I think there's like a lot of us, myself very much included, who find these little sneaky ways around things. And so like Noom, yeah. Yeah. Right.
This excuse.
And they also, you get a group that you can use or not use as much as you like with it. And it's just all on your phone where you can chat with one another, and you're assigned a coach who you can use or not use. It just depends on your desires. But I found it, like, I think if you're someone who does not necessarily want to join a program, one of the other things, and I feel like this is a big ad for Noom. I hope they see this and pay me something. One of the other things that I like about Noom is there's no bait and switch with it. There's no like, if you buy these frozen meals, then you're really going to be in the program. If you buy these books, then you're really supercharging yourself. If you level up it's just all very like in the foundational, whatever the cost is the same cost for everyone. There's no like, different tiers and different levels and leveling up and all that shit that is just added on, and so I really appreciate that. I think it's great for people who just want to do it on their own, who don't necessarily, there are.
Or something.
What's that?
We want to go to Weight Watchers or something like that.
I don't want to do that. And so, and I just found it, there are people who it doesn't work for. And I think especially people where if you're entering calories or foods and stuff like that, if that triggers old disordered eating habits and stuff like that, it may not be for you. But I can't think of one that's friendlier to those of us who have had eating disorders. So like you may have to just continue doing it on your own, because I don't think there is one.
Well, I think even before Noom came on the scene, the research was out there that showed that long-term weight loss, people who are most successful are those who keep track of it on a daily basis, because it is that accountability, that awareness of, oh my gosh. And, with the apps now, you just enter a food. I mean, I think there was
So
even one
easy.
that you could just like point the camera at it and would know what it was. So
It is easy. And I think one of the other aspects of it, and these are all just encouragements, it's not like you get kicked out if you don't do it or whatever, is a daily weigh-in. So like first thing in the morning. I haven't done it for about a week, but that's okay. I know I'm not like overdoing it or whatever, but it helps you to understand like, oh, I had a meal with rice last night and it wasn't high calorie, but I'm retaining water. So that's why I weigh 2 pounds more today, inexplicably, Do you know what I mean? So it helps you to better understand, because you're keeping accountability of these various
you know what your own triggers are, what your own, and when I say triggers, I mean like, the 2 pound or the 5 pound weight gain. It's like,
I would want to at least have had a pint of ice cream for that. But it does show
that just the salt, really.
But it does show that there are so many variables with just simple plant-based choices,
Right.
just like there can be a lot of factors that, and so I think that helps you with the bigger picture of, I know I did not, overeat yesterday. So like, let me put this in perspective. There was something I ate that's obviously, causing me to retain water. It's not the end of the world. You know what I mean? So, if you have a big special event, you may not want to eat that food the day before, if it's causing, temporary weight gain, but I don't know. It's just like, I think anytime you're just trying to feel better in your body, I think that's good. It's a no dogma approach. I appreciate that.
And I think getting back to how we started this out, which is that, long term, it's what can you eat that is serve you for the next 30, 50 years. And, a plant-based, vegan, whole foods, as much as you can, reasonable diet is just so satisfying. And, everybody, what foods are going to fill the stomach. Again, I think you have a meme comparing a stomach filled with
You're right.
On the same calories of plants, and it's like a whole stomach is full. So
if you think back about the old diet books where they're trying to teach you like what a serving is, they say like a serving of meat is the size of a deck of cards, right? It's so like, I'm just looking at the people on Noom who are like in my group who are trying to figure out how to be a little more satiated when they're still eating these things. I'm like, I've got like a giant bowl of, got my big ass salad. But so it feels like, I do drop hints here and there, when I like report what I've eaten and stuff like that. Like, you can keep going eating. But yeah, like the idea of this little deck of cards, I'm sorry, like most of us are not going to be anywhere close to full on that, So.
Well, I think this is a great place to stop, right? Because we've ended on another amazing thing about being vegan.
Welcome, Ellen. Welcome, Ellen.
Yes, welcome,
so much
Ellen.
fun to be here. Oh my gosh, I see Marla every week, and Kimberly, and Colleen, if and when she comes back from Florida.
We're gonna have fun.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna
thank
move
you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. How cool was that? Did you learn a bunch? I learned a bunch. It's so awesome. I love how we start with a topic and we never know where it's going to go, but it's always a good time here at the Stew. So we will see you next week. I forgot to check what the topic is, but it doesn't matter what the topic is because we're going to be here and it's going to be awesome. So, in between, why don't you maybe come back on Monday and visit me at Fireside Chat? And then you can come back Wednesday for the next Vegan Stew. And while you're waiting, head on over to the Vegan Stew YouTube channel, click on subscribe, and then click that little ding, the little bell, so that you get notified every time we go live. And then head over to virtualvegfest.com and enter into our contest so you can win one of the amazing prize packs I mentioned at the top of the show. So be kind, take care of yourselves, eat a ton of vegan food, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.